Welcome back, everybody, to the next part of the Binding Coil of Bahamut, which will undergo a name change, unfortunately. Now, once again, this is all post-commentary, and this segments are several months old. And obviously, as I said the last time, there is an awkward cut here, mainly because when I started this second part, several days after the original set, I had forgotten to do one of the quests. So I had to awkwardly edit back then because, continuity and all that crap. Alright, so this was released right after patch 2.2, so after all that crap with Leviathan and whatnot, and obviously they've been busy researching and trying to find some answers to the questions that were raised at the end of the last one. With, seeing Bahamut's head pulsating over this crystal heart and everything, and certain old dude may yet be alive and all this stuff. Yeah, it's kind of confusing. So what's up, girl? What's going on? Okay. What kind of research you been up to, girl? Yes, that's where we were. Yeah, so obviously since, it might be a while since people have actually, read the story of this, they need to do like the random recap of, hey, okay, this is what's going on in the 6 months since this content was still released. I'm stuttering a lot today. I am sorry. Yeah, so yeah, they're going through a little bit of history of Bahamut here, which we've somewhat learned during the Crystal Tower. What with entrapping Bahamut in the moon and yada yada yada, using him as a kind of a battery to channel the solar power of the sun, and it ended up being of their undoing. So yeah. So even though, yeah, Dalamud is gone now, obviously the regenerative powers to keep him imprisoned within Dalamud that were in place for over 5,000 years still exist. So yeah, as you can see, the speculation here is because we know primals need two things to exist in this world. They need aether and they need prayer. But we didn't find, besides those, other two souls we found down there, one which you was it in a blink and you miss it, no one else is down there. So the question is, where is this prayer coming from? And she speculates that obviously this machinery is kind of a way to simulate that, which honestly is a pretty good theory. I mean, after all, what we'll see much later. And one thing I did argue about a while back, what with Shiva and with King Mog, is that we don't really have a standard definition for what a primal is. Like, the definition we go on is pretty much that there's recorded history of it. And, that's why, all the others, like Shiva and King Mog, don't have a previous real written history as primals. So they're like, yeah, they're not real primals. And, like, Moonbreeder comes along and she's like, yeah, yes it is. So that does stand to reason that, we may be missing something in the whole aether and, prayer to sustain a primal thing, that there could be other things that we're missing. So here we have another one of her assistants who's been working, because one of the fragments of Dalamud is here in North Shroud. As I get stuck on a pole there. So what's up, dude? Apparently you're not very sharp-eyed if you didn't see me sneaking up behind you, but okay. No, I'm not gonna bugger off. I'm like twice your size and I'm here with a purpose, okay? Thanks. Who the hell comes over here that you need to shoo away? There's like nothing here. But whatever. With all this creepy stuff going around and, our quest to keep this secret, I suppose it's somewhat justified to be a little paranoid of people coming up to you and be like, hey, what you doing behind all around near there's corrupted crystals and crap, huh? Huh? What are you up to, bro? What? And whatever, so. I'm just talking out my butt from now on. Yeah, I'm sure she will be. But how they know she's like coming at like this exact hour, I don't know. Maybe she like told them. I don't know. I don't even know, do they have even watches anywhere? I don't know if this ever mentioned. Oh well. I just thought of that. So once again, my party is already assembled. In one of those cuts there. I made that look a lot more flawless than it really was. Not really. He kind of said mean things to me and whatever, but doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, I suppose. Now, what I find amusing here, and what people take too literally, is this is Alphino here, obviously, and she actually confuses him for his sister. Now, a lot of people are like, blah, 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 oh my god, he's so girly. But to be fair, they do look a lot alike, even though they're not identical, and she's expecting his sister. And you notice she immediately corrects herself when she realizes that, oh crap, it's the other one, because he wasn't meant to show up here. So yeah, he knows about this endeavor, despite the secrecy, but we don't know why yet. So obviously the shtick here is he's a bit concerned about his sister, getting into crap she may not need to get into, and that she's a bit clinging to too much hope that, you know, Grandpa is alive over here. Now, we saw him ourselves, but part of the reason of what motivates her, and part of why she probably didn't crap her pants at the, you know, giant pulsing head of Bahamut here, is her obsession with her grandfather is what is driving her here. Even though it has been 5 years, she is still absolutely mad with grief, and she cannot let it go. Yeah. And honestly, having been in that position before, even though it was not for 5 years, it was a little less than 1, I can sympathize with her. So once again, now that we have the second coil open, we can queue up as normal. Now, one problem here I have with the game as a whole, there's only 4 turns this time. The disaster that was turn 3 was completely like scrapped, and every single encounter here is a boss encounter from now on. But they heavily nerfed turns 6 through 8 here. They were a lot more challenging than they are now. By coincidence, I actually had, because this is actually my 3rd static group, my 2nd static, when I was progressing with them, I actually had recordings of us completing 6, 7, and 8, just for my own reasons. Those were unfortunately, I was planning on keeping those too. Those were unfortunately lost when way back in like early in this LP, where I had that computer issue and I accidentally overrode my whole hard drive, and thus I lost them. So you guys unfortunately get to see the shitty versions. Yeah, so we're actually inside the second fragment now, and yeah, the insight's a little bit unexpected here. Like, you can't see it from where we was, but now that we're actually up close and personal, it's like, whoa, this is creepy. Yeah. Like, she's like, yeah, that whole Bahamut thing, yeah, that's kind of an afterthought to her, actually. But what's different about this place, turn 6 is actually somewhat weirder than the rest. And why they chose to do it this way, I have no idea. So yeah, they're all waiting for me to get out of the cutscene and whatnot here. Once again, there is trash and stuff here, but it's actually a little bit less than usual. It's not like turn 1 trash where there's that much. It takes you less time. At least in this case, we will not be seeing that in the next one. Again, why they felt all this trash necessary, I don't know. Later on, it will make a little more sense, because I need time to exposit on the plot and developments and whatnot and all that other stuff, but you can just like walk through it and have cutscenes. You don't need to kill random things, you know. It's just to waste your time, really. But yeah, I'm not sure the reason for the lunar golems here, because like out in the overworld, there are golems in this area, so it's like, are they actual golems corrupted by the crystals, or have they been here the whole time? That I don't know. Again, doesn't really matter in the massive grand scheme of things, but it's just some weird things to think about. As I said before, I am like an absolute like in love with this story, like completely. So I've spent many a moon expositing about this in my own little head and forming my own little crappy headcanons about what's going on. And every time I actually go back and read something or notice something, I think of something different. Call it an obsession if you must. I'm completely willing to admit to that. Because when I tend to get into something, I tend to really get into it, and then this is my thing right now. So yeah, a little less time spent in the trash, but now we get to deal with the boss. Who is a plant? Why there's a plant in here, I have no idea, because as you will eventually see, this is nothing like all the other Alagon stuff that we've encountered thus far, and will encounter actually later as well. But whatever. So Rafflesia here is actually a pretty significant name, if you know what it means. It's actually the name of one of the Pokemon. I think it's Vileplume in some other language, and it's also the name of a distinctive plant as well. So this is not a name they just made up. If I was smart, I would have done a little bit more research and made it more clear before I started recording this, but I didn't realize till now that crap, I wanted to mention this and I probably should have looked it up. I would like to give you more specifics, but I'd rather not, for fear of giving you the wrong information here. So again, we have people in my static who are not on their normal jobs. We actually have another new member here, because our Dragoon could not make it this week, so we have somebody else. As you can see, one of our tanks is actually a bard right now, our leader, and he is kind of a scrub at it, but it's okay. So yeah, anyway, they heavily nerfed this turn. There was a bunch of insta-kill mechanics in here that no longer kill you and barely hurt you at all in the grand scheme of things, and it really kind of sucks because it took the challenge away from this turn. I mean, I can understand the catering to casuals, because this game is rather much more casual than a lot of MMOs and whatnot as far as rating goes, but at the same time, they took it too far, especially since they did not nerf any of the turns. The only other semi-nerf they added to any of the turns is adding the Echo, which obviously helps with your healing and DPS and whatnot, but here they straight up just got rid of mechanics here and completely changed what they do and everything like that, and it sucks hardcore. Like this move here, Blighted Bouquet. Originally, when it went off, if you were moving, you would die. It would do like 17,000 damage, and it was instant death. As you can see, even now with our better gear, we still don't even have, you know, except for the tanks, not even a third of that. But now it just does a couple thousand damage if we're moving, so yeah. So the whole idea about this boss is getting devoured by it, which you want to avoid at all costs, except for one little thing. And you have to deal with all these brambles and things like that, which will slow you down if you walk into them. So you may have to rotate these bosses. These Dark Matter Hornets have a final sting move that, if it went off, would kill you. Now it no longer does. However, what it does is it attacks a specific player and gives them actually, as you can see it's on our bard there, a stack of honey, which you were supposed to actually intentionally get eaten by the boss to remove it, because it would keep summoning bees over you all the time, and that's kind of, you know, not cool. Because this boss does have a semi-soft enrage here, and whatnot, but now, as soon as these Dark Matter Slugs appear, the Hornets do not anymore when they used to. This Acid Rain used to kill you. It no longer does. It still hurts, but it no longer killed you. But dealing with these slugs was also another pain in the butt. Because their idea is they actually eat the honeys, and you're supposed to feed one honey to each slug. But if one slug eats too many honeys, it becomes a super slug and starts beating the shit out of your tank. But the reason you want to get rid of these honeys is because they actually have a stacking debuff on us. As you can see, it's about to hit 3. Or is that 4? I can't really tell from here. Because again, I'm watching this in slightly lower quality than you're seeing it. And once it reaches 9, it will wipe the whole party. So you're either on a choose to have a DPS check, or you choose to have an enrage timer on here. And it would actually vary. Here we're choosing the enrage timer, because you can see the slugs and the honeys are still alive, because we're kicking the shit out of this, because we know the fight and we're all over geared and whatnot. So yeah, but yeah, since that was heavily nerfed, looks a lot easier than it really was when the content was actually new. Again, much to my disappointment. Because even back then, it wasn't really that hard. I mean, it required people to be on their top of the game and not get one-shot by certain mechanics that would kill you, but other than that, it was still a fine turn. I actually cleared it pretty early on in its release. About like 2 weeks after it opened. With some of my old FC members and whatnot. And then I would go, before I end up getting the static, I used to hug it every week, so... Some more Allegon teleporters, hooray! That will lead us to the next turn. Turn 7, which I really hate what they did with. This was actually a wall to a lot of people for one specific reason during one of the mechanics, which I will get to when we get there, but first, we have cutscene. So yeah, this hallway here is much more like the Allegon tech we've seen. And this is the figure we saw at the end of turn 5, that in a blink and you miss it moment is sitting in the shadows. A lot of people didn't even notice this figure was there until after they've seen this cutscene. And I was one of those people. This right here is Nail Deus Darnus, the man who started Project Meteor and brought Dalamud out of the sky and thus instigated the 7th Armable Calamity, as she is talking about. But Darnus is dead. The people in 1.0, that was actually like kind of like the final-ish boss fight, is you killed him. So what the hell is going on here? Ah, shit. And of course, I just realized I kind of spoiled it. His name in life was Nail Van Darnus, and Deus Darnus is the name he is given now. Yeah, it is very obvious that he is enslaved to Bahamut. That kind of sucks. Okay, so let's fight. No, you're just gonna suicide off the edge? Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Fine. Where'd he go? Where'd he go? Yeah, oh well. Whatever. Yeah. Now, what I find really, really interesting here, and I'm not sure it's the same in the Japanese or not because I don't speak Japanese, but notice how she says her brother is the one who told her. Now, I would think this would be common knowledge and whatnot. And certainly because obviously she, lives with her brother, but, before they had that argument a while back, that she would be privy to the same information. Why wouldn't they learn about it at the same time? And then it probably hit me, as you might have read, here I'm just jumping on the walls because we're talking in TeamSpeak. If you read, the 5th part of the Tales of the Calamity that I linked in the last one, I'll link it again. She is, upon hearing about her supposed grandfather's death, she is absolutely, completely mad with grief. And to that extent, I can completely understand that she might not have been willing or even able mentally to listen to some of the other news that came with what happened immediately before and after during the calamity. So it makes sense that she would learn that information from her brother, who would tell her, rather than the original source that he heard it from. I can tell you as an example of this, and one thing I've mentioned before when, her character first departed from the main story, that her grief over losing her grandfather, I can completely sympathize with. This is all just trash here. There's like 7 waves of it, so I'm just going to be talking right over it. It's not really important what's going on with the trash here. But I was 16 years old when my grandmother died, and unlike her in Alice's case here, it was not due to unexpected circumstances. She was dying, and we all knew it. I tried to prepare myself for it, but evidently I didn't, because it was the first real death I actually faced, and even for my siblings too, who were older than I was, still am, obviously. And basically, the first time that happens in your life, you really don't know how to handle it, especially if it's someone really close to you, like she and I were. And for the first several months and almost to a year, I was an absolute wreck. Even though my mother warned me, during her wake and funeral, that she warned me that, you'll see people laughing and apparently seeming to me to have a good time, but that this was normal and it was not disrespectful. Of course, I didn't listen, so during the time, mentally I was absolutely freaking furious at everybody, and it wasn't until about a year later that I actually really understood that what my mother was trying to warn me about, and, whatever. I mean, I didn't say anything to anybody, but internally I was absolutely completely mad with grief and fuming, just absolutely freaking fuming. And during the next couple months, as we cleaned out our house and whatnot, I actually did not go with my family to do that. I actually stayed home by myself every time but the last, not only because I felt like I was going to get in the way, but because I couldn't handle it. I cried myself to sleep for weeks in my grief. When it came to the holidays that year, several months later, even though I started feeling better, I was a wreck again, because now that was, for, major milestones in my life, time with your family and whatever, without her being there. So I had a really, really difficult time. Within about a year, though, I ended up being mostly okay, just because time just really does that to you. But for her, she's just beyond obsessed. I mean, for her, it took me about a year to get over it. Not completely, but for the most part, I was okay and could get on with my life. Her, it's been 5 years. But I'm not sure if she's been like this the whole time in her obsession. But if you remember from that, said story, they were about to go in the studio right when he, departed, and she saw them for the last time. So if she's been the same thing in the interim in the past 5 years, I don't know. But even if she hasn't, I can understand their recent graduation and the fact that he's not there to see it would be a primary motivation for all that grief to come back, assuming it wasn't there the whole entire time. So yeah, I know I got a little bit personal with my story there, but I can, like I said, I can really actually sympathize with how she is feeling internally here. Now, obviously, I cut there because we actually wiped here. You are going to see us derping absolutely hard in this fight because we just are completely derping it up here. We're laughing at each other and whatnot, and because this fight has been heavily nerfed, we are not giving a shit about the mechanics whatsoever, and obviously we ended up wiping as a result here. This fight actually does not have a harsh DPS check. It is a harsh mechanics check. This is one of the fights where slow and steady wins. And the main thing here is Melusine here, and yes, it is Melusine, even though she doesn't look like the same one from Final Fantasy V, is a Lamia, and obviously she comes with all the petrifying nonsense that they normally do here. That is what that cursed voice move that she does. And it whips out a cone in front of you, and anything that gets hit by this gets turned to stone. If you are turned to stone, one hit normally would have killed you. They nerfed that so that no longer happens. So the main thing here is do not get stoned, and if you do, for the love of God, don't get hit by anything. which is kind of impossible because the ranged DPS get hit by this Circle of Flames move at random and constantly. So yeah, getting yourself or another player stoned is bad news bears. The other problem is this for nods here, that if they touched you, they tether to the first player that attacks them. They would smack you and literally one-shot you. But they can be stoned just like the rest of the players, and Celine just died there. And we're actually stacking them on purpose because they can be turned to stone like everybody else. And we actually need them for a wall. Because basically that debuff that our summoner has is Cursed Shriek. And unlike Voice, which is a cone, this one covers the whole arena. However, but if the person who has it stands behind these Renauds, the Renauds will actually block it from the rest of the party, which is kind of cool. Now, the challenge of this fight was this Cursed Voice comes out at very specific intervals, but the Renauds only stayed stoned for 30 seconds at a time. And during the phase shifts of the boss, it would kind of, reset her rotation. So you had to time how you phase pushed her so these Renauds would not come unstoned. And frankly, the only nerf that really needed to be made to this fight was to increase the amount of time that the Renauds stay stoned. Instead, they got rid of the fact that you got, not only did the Renauds not one-shot you if you actually get hit by them, but the fact that, like I said, if you accidentally get stoned, which will start happening later on in this fight, getting hit will no longer kill you, which takes away a lot of the challenge of this fight. This floor, I don't remember if it still kills you or not. Eventually it will explode, and if you're standing on it, you did die before. If you still do, I don't know. We don't chance it here, so yeah, everything's going fine now, but eventually it will go into clusterfuck territory, and we somehow pull through. Again, because of the fact we know we can ignore certain mechanics, we are just straight up derping it up. It looks like we're horrible players, but we're not. Even though I was not part of this static, I did completely clear this on my own when it was in new content with my previous static and whatnot. But yeah, because of the challenges that this fight presented and not getting one shot, it made for a difficult fight. Now, even if you did have dash, you could recover, because again, this was not a DPS check, so if you just stayed slow and steady, you could actually recover from this. Now, fortunately, the Lamias cannot be stoned, and if you actually try to stone the boss, she gets a buff, so that's a bad news bears. So yeah, she does this move called Petrifaction, which you need to look away from. As you can see, a bunch of us did not. So we're all sitting here stoned. Yeah, see, that Circle of Flames would have just wiped us immediately. We'd all getting hit by it. But as you can see, yeah, because I was petrified, my Cursed Voice completely went and stoned other people. And yeah, it's getting sour right about now, because a bunch of us are not paying attention to Petrifaction, and yeah. So yeah, she also has a move, this Prosector here, the ad, has a move that will hysteria you if not killed within an adequate amount of time. And since people are dead and we all got petrified, yeah, that's why this turned sour really quickly. So yeah, sorry, my voice needs a quick break here. Oh, from all this talking and whatnot. She has another move that I don't think's come out yet. Because I don't remember the face changes in this fight at all, because it's been so long since I've done this. Because nobody ever wants to freaking do this turn. Like once you didn't need to anymore, it was like, screw that, this turn is a pain in the freaking ass. Venomous Tail, there it is. It's a heavy poison, and it will spread to other players if you don't get rid of it. And it does a hefty amount of damage. So yeah, while you're trying to heal everyone out of this mess, now you gotta like assume all this off people before it starts spreading. This is where the fight would actually get kind of hectic, because now it is, doesn't really become that much of a DPS check, but you're getting like so close, and usually people will be like, alright, we can do this, we got this, all the hard part's over, and then you start fucking up because you get overconfident. But yeah. So yeah, you have to handle your voice cone throughout this whole fight, along with the shriek, and whatnot, and we killed the Renards there on purpose because we had the fight right there, so. So yeah, clearing this fight every week was like a relief for everybody because this turn was a pain in the ass. It was just all about trusting your teammates, and one single person derping and screwing it up could mean a wipe for you all. So it was very forgiving on the DPS check. It was not forgiving on the mechanics, however. But if you could survive and stay steady, like I said, even some mistakes could be recovered from, but you were limited on how many you could make. And it obviously took us 2 tries to actually get it done. Which frankly is not that bad considering by the time we actually did this, besides us derping it up on purpose because we knew we could, it had been months since any of us had done the fight. So here is turn 8, which is the opposite. Heavy DPS check, not so much on the mechanics. So deeper and deeper into the caverns we once again go. With more Allion technology everywhere, so you can see why I'm saying like turn 6 is just kind of weird. Just weird. Because it doesn't look like this. Nice tit shot there. Yeah, well this place is huge, honey. I mean, we've already seen it from another angle. Yeah. So yeah, it's just amazing how all this stuff is running several thousand years later, and they still, like, they had like 1,000 contingencies for keeping Bahamut in here, like including all this, you know, Melusine is one of the bioweapons, so they had contingencies for somebody, you know, either breaking in here or him escaping or something to try to prevent that. Like, how much time and energy did they spend on this place? Like, holy shit. So here we kind of have trash, but we kind of don't. We skip it a bit. Now we have more of these jumpy pads, which you don't need to stand on because they just jump you forward. Some will jump you vertically, but the first couple do not. So this place is a maze of corridors. There's actually nodes that go around and will patrol the area, and if you run into them, it will actually summon a bunch of ads to come and try to beat the crap out of you. But because we know the timing, we can avoid the first one and whatnot. This is the only trash pull in the entire place. Just these two guys right here. And because this place is a maze, it's basically finding which way, you know, which upper floors and whatnot. There's actually 3 floors to this place, although you do not need to go to the final and upper floor. And a bunch of corridors with a bunch of like staircases and whatnot. And basically, you just need to make your way to this specific room, which is the boss room. If you know exactly where to go, it takes you 2 minutes to get there. If you don't know where to go, you're gonna get lost for a while because everything looks the same at this place. So here, just jump the platform to get over here. Here we have the Avatar. I could make 1,000 jokes here, but I am going to refrain. Although nothing is actually ever said of this, I have had a feeling, even before 2.3, I think it was 2.3, actually revealed the existence of Omega Weapon in this universe. I always thought that this, and the meaning of the name Avatar, and again, this is personal speculation, that this is a prototype for what eventually would be the Omega Weapon. It actually has several moves that are signature to Omega, including which is the Wipe Killer in this. Atomic Ray, it has like Diffusion Ray and like other stuff, and it, you know, even though it's kind of like downgraded, it, you know, the whole multi-armed facet and whatnot, and, you know, being machine-like, the whole motif reminds me of Omega Weapon. So, and again, nothing in the game is ever actually said in the game or implies that this thing is actually related to Omega Weapon whatsoever. That is just my complete own personal theory. But again, there's nothing really to disprove that either. No comparison is made whatsoever. So for the time being, until I'm proven wrong, I am going with that theory, because again, to me, you know, having the name the Avatar for it kind of makes sense in that regard. So again, this here is a strict DPS check. This guy, even though he has some attacks, actually rooted in place the entire time. He can be rotated, but he pretty much stays in the middle. Now, the stick with this turn, which was heavily nerfed, is these towers that they activate in certain patterns and in certain orders, and they each have, you won't be able to see it, they each have little energy bars on them. And what will happen if two stacks of towers actually reach the top or gain a charge at the same time, the boss will actually start casting Atomic Ray, and you will like immediately die because it is the wipe killer. And they both increase the stacks. You can see the red and glowy thing on the top right there. Both and on their own at a specific timer, but you can also push it by literally throwing somebody in the tower to get it to gain a charge. But you can only initially gain one charge at once because you will get a vulnerability buff, and if you went into a tower a second time, it would kill you because of the damage. Now you can take two, and in some cases 3 stacks. So a lot of the tactic with this turn was who to put in what tower at what time, and it required a lot of communication to do so. But since you know exactly when the towers are going to spawn and whatnot, and whatever, but very interesting about this turn is some of the stuff is both on a physical timer, meaning counting from when the fight starts, and based on the boss's HP. So you could actually skip a phase, which we are going to do so. I think we're going to skip phase 5 and maybe even part of 6. So you can actually, if you're not paying attention, unintentionally screw up your tower rotation. But once you got the right mojo down with your group, it pretty much just came down to knowing your own individual role and just a DPS check. As you can see, most of the time we're actually just standing here literally in the same spot the whole time. And we're actually numbered for a reason, but that move actually hasn't come out yet. So yeah, the tank takes quite a beating here. That line here is because he fires missiles at somebody, which will do splash damage, obviously. He has a move called Brain Jack, which literally makes him, the tank, literally confused for about 10 seconds, and he will attack the nearest party member. So somebody has to strategically place himself in the middle of the box's hitbox so the tank doesn't unintentionally turn the boss around and smack it to death with its diffusion ray, which will cause a bleed on people. That's what I keep getting rid of off the tank. And it hurts a freaking lot. Now, obviously, when I was you know, in my other static in my main on a bard, I was the one who had to handle the Brain Jack and the homing missile. So yeah, I had to really pay attention to the boss's cast bars and whatnot. And as you can see, we only have actually one tank in here. This fight is actually unique. In turn 8 will be the same way, although it's not necessary. You do not actually need 2 tanks here. Handling this Dreadnought and the boss at the same time does get a little hectic, but you know, if the tank handles its cooldowns properly, it is totally manageable. And apparently I tried to put down a Sacred Soil there for some stupid reason. Oh, I know why. Okay. I don't know why I canceled it the first time, but whatever. That's why. 2 of the towers actually, each tower actually has a different ability, and one of them is a massive raid-wide AoE. Actually, 2 of them have that, and that's what I was waiting for. But here was the killer in this fight, Allagan Field. Basically, he puts it on anybody who's not the tank, and any damage that character takes during the duration of the buff, at the end when the buff goes away, debuff, whatever, goes away, the whole raid will take double that damage. So the whole shtick there is to make sure that this person does not take any damage whatsoever. They need to stand out of group-wide AoEs that we need to group of. They need to be shielded so they don't accidentally take damage from defensive reaction, which would often wipe people if you didn't time that just right. And that the homing missile actually, you can't really see it, but the homing missile actually automatically defaults to them. Usually it would tether to a random player before it's taken away by the designated person, but in this phase it automatically goes to the person who is Allegan Field. But yeah, you wouldn't want to get hit by these landmines or anything like that. But now, since the damage has been nerfed, you don't have to protect the player that much. That's why you can't really see it, but they're standing in the corner right behind me. Yeah, there we go. There it comes. Because a bunch of these attacks, you know, like Ash's Bomb and whatnot, actually do hurt the entire party when you're stacked up like this. But yeah, if you could get down like the managing the towers and whatnot, this fight was not that bad. It was just, like I said, a massive DPS check, which is why it typically you went 1 tank 5 DPS, which unfortunately did mean if your tank died, then it was an automatic wipe. There was absolutely no way to recover from it. But yeah, it was very, very, very tight here. I think it's on 11 minutes, I think. And unlike Morphlasia and Melosign, which have softer rages, it was a hardened rage that once the time ran out, he would have started casting Atomic Ray, and you would die. You would die. He's actually the only boss in this part who has a hardened rage. I just realized that right now. Huh. Not that it's a really big deal or anything, but I just realized that about Titan Coil. Now, I think our tank dies at the end here. I think because we're so close to the end, we just go into DPS mode, nobody attacks the Dreadnought, and he will eventually eat dirt, I believe. I could be wrong about that. Yep, there we go. That was right. But yeah, basically he just took way too much damage because nobody's really focusing on the Dreadnought. And it's like, oh, we're so close, we got this. Couldn't we have just hit the off switch? I mean, 7 of us were behind him the whole time. Couldn't have wanted somebody to just gone in there and just took out his brain or pulled out some of his cables or something? I don't know. That would be too easy, I guess. And not like any of us really know about how elegant technology works. I love I'm just about to raise him after leaving him on the floor, and he resets anyway. But yeah, still worth it. Still worth it. So again, we are several miles below ground now on this other elevator. Now, I did not understand the significance of this until much later when I started doing my own research. This right here is actually the Riven Road, where the battle with Nel Van Dardis took place at the end of the original 1.0 storyline. But in the context of where we are, just... what? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And Dalamud is in the sky. What? I'm confused here. Yeah, you threatened me to do that 2 boss fights ago, and you didn't do shit, so why should I be threatened by you now? So this is where I started to realize how much of a badass this girl is. No provocation, no nothing. She just whips out the book and fires. Now, this is actually the first confirmation that her and her brother were Arcanists. Obviously, they've had the grimoires the whole time, but nobody was ever sure if they were just for decoration or purpose or whatever, because they don't look like any, or placed like any of the other grimoires that anybody else has, including mine own, even though mine is a Scholar one and not an Arcanist one, but we're not going to argue about semantics right now. So, yeah. A bit confusion here, because... this appearance of Deus Darkness here is that of a woman. That'll get explained later. Although, more like hand-waved away. But we'll get to that when we actually get to that. So, spontaneous combustion? Or you're gonna turn into a dragon. Lady. Thing. Yeah, so she just kind of exploded on a little bit, but yeah, Darnus was dead. And somehow Bahamut just, like, brings him back to life as his thrall? There's no real explanation for how he's able to do this, but it is testament to actually how powerful Bahamut is. So she's like, yeah, screw that. Okay, yeah. I'm out. A little bit too confusing for me. Fuck this. You take care of this, okay? But as she said, she's well aware of her own limitations, and she knows she's completely out of her freaking league here. So again, you're going to see a cut, because this is probably, and very arguably, the hardest of the entire 13 turns of Coil. Again, this was a fight, unlike turns 6 through 8, that was not nerfed whatsoever. Not even any of the mechanics, which, you do get the echo, obviously, which you can, you know, click off and whatnot, which is one reason why it baffles me that they nerfed 6, 7, and 8 so hard, because not only, okay, you get the more casual people available to do turns, you know, 6, 7, and 8, but they're still going to get stuck at 9, and even harder, because if they didn't have the skill to pass 6, 7, and 8 in the damn first place, then how the hell were they even going to challenge this? This was the static killer for my second static, actually, and it wasn't until shortly after it came off lockout that on my bard that I would eventually join this static group right here. Because they happened to need a bard, and they were trying to clear it, and I joined them in Party Finder one day and spent a couple hours with them doing this turn, and the next night they were going to do it again, and I was available, so they invited me back, because it was just convenient. It's like, oh, okay, you're pretty cool, we're making good progress here, we're doing this next night, you available? Okay, sure, cool, we'll do this. And then they formally invited me to join their static permanently, which I did. And I've been with them ever since. It's been over a year now, which is totally awesome. As long as I've ever been with a static. We've had some replacements over time, but yeah. So once again, this outer ring is actually instant death. There are a lot of instant death here mechanics. Not actually as many as turn 5. I believe it is one short of turn 5's instant death mechanics. But a lot of these moves hurt a lot. This tank is getting wailed on. Again, we only have one tank. There's only one tank needed. 2 tanks will help for a certain part, but if you've got it under control, you only actually need 1. There is no tank swap necessary. And whatnot. So yeah, fitting for what's going on here, and I actually got one here, these meteors will actually drop. You don't want to get crushed by it because it will kill you, but these meteors and their placement will become important later. Now right here, Nail is actually going invincible, and he will for quite a while. This is the most obnoxious part of the fight because it just takes so long and it is on a strict timer. These golems here are tricky-dicky to deal with if you don't know how to do it properly. The green golem hits a lot and is the only one that needs to be tanked by an actual tank. The other 2 actually don't do much. But each of them has a specific thing that they do. And these meteors around here, they will eat them. And you actually need them to get eaten, because if they are on the field later, you will die. However, you do not want to feed a golem more than 2 meteors, because if it needs 3 meteors, it becomes a super golem. If 2 of the golems get too close to each other, they will also merge and become a super golem. Super golem is bad news bears because they cannot be killed and they will murder you. Really, really hard. There's just absolutely no way. It is utterly impossible. Like, and at that point you just, you hit the wall and you start over. So here, this whole phase is on a timer, which is what we're sitting around waiting for. Eventually, 6 new meteors are going to spawn. And here they are starting. They pick 6 random players, obviously, so you can actually get multiple ones in a row. Um, that's actually why our Black Mage is actually waiting to raise. So he doesn't get accidentally killed. He might actually be lagging and DCing at this point, possibly. That could have been an issue there. But yeah, you also don't want to like spawn these golems like right on top of the meteors. The color actually matters. One gives them an attack buff, one actually gives them a speed buff. But it actually doesn't matter which one you actually feed them at all. So there's that. After a certain amount of time, the golems actually do swap colors too. And obviously with it their abilities, which is why you want to kill the green one first, because you do not want some other poor sap to end up taking that thing. The blue one actually has a move that will paralyze you that will need to be silenced. That is what you have the Bard bitches for. Again, that was my job. I would take the red golem, and by the time it was our turn to kill it, it would actually turn to blue. Since the green one was dead, it would automatically turn to blue before it's random, but if green is dead, nothing can turn to green because it's not alive anymore. So I would have to silence this move Earthshock, and if I failed to do so, then I would possibly mean a wipe for my party. This red one is the one who spits the red ball of fire here. But yes, after a distinct amount of time, Nail is going to cast Mega Flare here. And I believe if any golems are alive or any meteors are still here, you die. I don't think I've ever seen that happen. There's actually another mechanic which you can only see if you purposely do it, is if you have 5 meters of the same color, they will tether and you will die. So yeah, here the field actually changes, and here we have what appears to be what looks like a fragment of Dalamud striking the ground in a move called Heaven's Fall. Very fitting here. So yeah, the fight becomes a little more hectic at this point for reasons you will see in about 3 seconds here. The Ghost of Mericidia. This actually hits harder than the boss does. This thing is nasty, and the only reason you would ever bring 2 tanks to this is to alleviate your tank on here. It would not be uncommon for a tank to Hallowed or Hallowed Ground here. Home Gang, rather. I just said Hallowed twice. But yeah, this like casts moves on you and whatnot. You get certain debuff on you, Garrote Twist, and whatever that you need to get rid of, otherwise you will die. The mini boss ghost, whatever, that actually leaves them behind. But yeah, that Ghost of Mericidia was bad news bears if you could not kill that thing in time. Heaven's Fall hurts a shitload. You can see we have this other puddle on the ground. Bahamut's Claw is a move that strikes 5 times and is bad news bears because it hurts. Because over time, this boss will actually gain a stacking buff that increases her power. That happens at certain intervals, so it pretty much sunk into the soft enrage for this entire fight. So here is the part of the fight that's difficult, dealing with the elementals. You can't really see them because they're just off screen. You might have to look at the corners of my screen to get a glimpse. There are 3 dragons. There's an ice dragon, a fire dragon, and a thunder dragon that will be throwing these buffs at you at very specific intervals. You can see one briefly in the corner there and behind me on my camera. And what positions they are in is very important, which is why you will see these way markers move, because the game loves their dive bomb mechanics, and eventually they will dive at you. That's actually coming shortly. And depending on where each of them spawn, 2 of them will dive at once together, and the other will dive alone. And you need to carefully place these dive bombs so they don't go through the center of the arena while you're dealing with the boss diving at you. Technically, they're actually not called dive bombs in this case. It's a move called Cauterize, which we've actually seen in Circus Tower. Which I believe the red dragon used that move. It's the same thing, only it does a lot more damage, and it will cause knockback and whatnot, but you need to properly bait it. Fortunately, I think unlike Turn 5 dive bombs, where everybody needed to move together, this one, only the marked player actually has to place it, so that's good. So with these ice and fire, basically, if you get either 2 ice or 2 fire buffs, you will die. So basically, and ice removes fire, and obviously fire removes ice. Ice is single target and goes through the party pretty much in order. But the fire, you actually have to place on the party. So pretty much every other fire you hit with the party, and the other everyone, like I'm here, I'm taking it out. because not everyone has ice, so we don't need to. Obviously, we just had a death there. Yeah, you're gonna deal with these supernovas on the ground, this thermiotic beam, which you need to stack for, all while dealing with all this other crap. This is mechanically very intense. And as you can see, our tank, because I was slowing the ball, just ate dirt there, but since we are almost done, and I'm actually, because of me trying to race the tank, I'm going to misplace this dive bomb, and I will end up killing people, and including myself as a result of it. But since we are so close to the end, we're pretty much either just fuck it, just go, 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 go. If we wipe, we wipe, you know. We don't have time to sit here and our fight over this, so... Yeah. We actually went through several wipes trying to record this. It took us like almost an hour to get it done. Because even overgearing, it's just mechanically very intense. Not as tight of a DPS check as 8, a little bit more than 7, but it's much more mechanical. It's probably the most mechanically intense fight in the game, because again, you fuck up and people will die, but you don't have as much recovery chance as you do in 7. So people, even to this day, even unsynced at level 60, because obviously Heaven's Word has been released at the time of this commentary, people still have trouble with clearing this turn. Still. So as you can see, yeah, the floor looks quite different from both phases of the fight. What's going on here? Well, your hint was actually in the name of this place. It's called the Hollow Charts for a reason. I don't think anyone really understood the significance of the name until this happened. Because most of the names of the arenas here, except the right-handed Bahamut, is like, what the hell? Okay, you know, you didn't see any real significance here. Like Dalimud Shadow for turn 6 and whatnot. And so Nail is no longer a dragon lady. Yeah, that's kind of a shitty existence. Again, how this the whole thing occurred is never said. Again, just chalking it up to Bahamut's power. So as you can see, Nail's personality has changed, and now remembers his existence as Nail of Vandarnus. Huh. Interesting, but makes for a good plot exposition. But yeah, here comes another revelation here that, again, is never really expanded upon outside the coil here. We've always thought that the only way to release someone from being enslaved through a primal was to literally grant them the release via death. Here, it's made clear that perhaps there is another way, that perhaps, which is the assumption here, again, it's never actually officially stated that this is the cause, but the speculation here, which I have no reason to dispute, is that a primal can actually, just because, I mean, they can choose to enslave whoever they want, except those who have the Echo. I mean, you know, Leviathan didn't try to temper us. Garuda tried to, only to realize she failed. Titan, it's not his thing. Ifrit tried, and he's like, oh crap, why couldn't I do this? Until he, you know, he learns the truth like Garuda did. But if they can enslave anyone at will, and when they want to, it seems standard reason that they can also free them at will as well. Why they would want to, well, frankly, they wouldn't. Why would you want to get rid of a perfectly willing slave who, you know, is at your every beck and call and, you know, answers to your every whim? But in this case, you can kind of understand why Bahamut might actually release him, because holy shit! Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. That if indeed Bahamut is actually sustaining their existence in the first place, well, if it's no use to them, then, yeah, I don't need you anymore, so therefore I'm gonna let you go. So yeah, we don't even get the pleasure of killing Nail a second time. So yeah, poor Nail. even though you tried to kill us all, we kind of feel sorry for you right now. Okay. Are you really so sure? Really, really? We don't even know where he is. So how we actually get up here to this panel, I don't know. It's probably some end of the holo charts, maybe some other elevator. Doesn't really matter in the end. But as you can see, Bahamut has regenerated further. Before, he was simply a head. Now he's got his shoulders, part of his chest, and a couple of pieces of his wings have grown back. If this actually, you know, his regeneration of his wings here actually removes the crystal formation from what we seen in turn 1, that I don't know. It's never actually said one way or the other. So here, she has a sad moment because, yeah, she didn't actually think we would actually succeed here, and she's actually quite thrilled and relieved that we do. Now keep in mind what she's saying here because it will get a callback later. So yeah, again, she's completely unfazed by, well, she's kind of in a little bit of, like, oh crap awe, but she's pretty much mostly unfazed by the fact that Bahamut is regenerating here, and actually a pretty rapid rate, all things considered. To me, again, if I didn't already see this the first time, would be pants-crappingly terrifying. Because now we know we're on a time limit here. We need to stop this. But we also need to find out, you know, where the other... Oh, hi! The other the control panels are and whatnot, which we have no idea, and this place is huge, and holy crap, what the hell did you do? Are you okay? I notice I'm gonna be a dick and not try to help you up, but... Yeah. Yeah, Killer Dragon Primal on the loose is not a good thing for everybody. We saw what happened last time. Okay, and we all barely freaking survived. Yeah, you're gonna have to go through me first, bitch. I did have 7 other people helping with me here. And oh crap, here comes the reveal. Yeah. He's not down here to keep Bahamut imprisoned. And again, you have an opportunity to kill us, and instead you just give an empty threat. I mean, I know just killing us outright doesn't make for good storytelling and whatnot, but yeah, that always kind of annoyed me. It's like, you do this again and I'm gonna kill you, and then they never make do on that threat. Even though he is well the means to, because the voice she heard, that we unfortunately do not, because the scene is not voice acted, yeah, he is the one who kills Darnus with that spear of light. Yeah. So he has the means to kill us, and yet does not. And now, she's pissed. Now, if it wasn't already personal, which was already it was, it is even more personal now. Before, it just came about, oh, you know, I want to see my grandpa again, and oh, this little thing of Bahamut is kind of in the way. I might as well take care of it while it's down here because this doesn't bode well for anybody. But now she is like bound and determined. Because she is just straight up pissed. And frankly, I would be too. Because not only do we have a being here who's like capable of, destroying the world probably several times over, but also, has enslaved someone very beloved to her. So I can completely understand her being quite a bit miffed and upset about this revelation. So yeah, she needs some, alone time, and I honestly can't blame her. But if you notice, yet again, we have emerged in northern Thanalan here at what is a formation known as Dalamut's Talons here, for reasons we yet don't know. Yeah, about that, yeah. I don't think you're gonna be happy by this bit of news. Hi, are you okay? Do you need a hug? Because I frankly would need several dozen right now. So yeah, despite how upset this has all made her in various ways, she is not backing down, and I have to give her credit, very much credit for actually doing so. But now, back to the whole point of Nail being a chick here. It was thought by some, previously, until I actually saw, supposedly the devs debunk this, that Nail as a man was a creation of the English translation back in 1.0, because supposedly, and again, this is kind of not true, in the end, that Nail in Japanese was referred to in the gender neutral, and the whole supposed idea was that Nail was female the whole time, and it was completely overlooked in the English because, again, there is no gender neutral rude pronoun, because it is not something appropriate to call someone. It dehumanizes them. So the natural assumption was that he was male. According to the devs, though, that Nail was male, was indeed, even the Japanese, intended to be male this whole time. Some of the memos may have been like misunderstood and things like that and whatnot, but this whole Nail becoming female after carried from the brink of death and turned into Bahamut's thrall is actually in canon an oversight by Bahamut. By which this has occurred, we don't know. And as Alize speculated that possibly somebody from his memories, which honestly I think is definitely true. But yeah, but why they made Nail a female there, honestly, I don't know. But honestly, it doesn't really matter because Nail's character does not change depending on if he's got a dick or if he doesn't. To be perfectly frank here. But yeah, now we can see her brother is still sneaking around, unbeknownst entirely to her this whole time. And frankly, yeah, he's a bit concerned and he's got every single right to be. But yeah, that's quite a revelation for the end of the second coil, that the man we thought was keeping Bahamut under control, so we thought, is actually a slave to him. And this has some serious consequences, but we're going to actually have to deal with that next time in the final corner, after that awkward cut there, because again, it is another week before we actually actually a long time before we record this. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the final coil, which is actually 2 parts, because it is 2 hours long. So thank you for watching, everybody, and I'll see you then.